Age of Transitions.
You are listening to the Age of Transitions. I'm your host, Aaron Franz, coming at you live this Friday night, July 24th, 2026. Live every Friday night from the facilities of Ochelli.com, 10 p.m. to midnight Eastern Time. First hour, Age of Transitions. Second hour, Uncle of the Broadcast. Thank you for listening. Do consider going to Ochelli.com to send a donation to help Chuck and the network out. It's a difficult time for the network, but excited to hear that Chuck is excited as ever to do new things if we're able to do them. And we're only able to do them if there's some kind of money to live off of. So Ochelli.com, consider donating. TheAgeOfTransitions.com, that's my website. Lots of ways to support this show, get the podcast there. I have my book, Revolve, Man's Scientific Rise to Godhood. You can find that at my website. Got paperback and ebook copies available of Revolve. Thank you, everybody who has bought a copy throughout the years, and anybody who might yet buy a copy. I do, on Revolve, I'll take a moment to talk about it. It's a book that I'm proud of still. It's a book that's different than I think any other book about transhumanism out there. It's a book that I wouldn't write exactly the way it's written today because my ideas have changed slightly. My opinions are a little different, maybe more nuanced than in the book. But at the same time, I think all of the general ideas in the book I still agree with. It gets half of the book is dedicated to the esoteric, occult, alchemical concepts relating to transhumanism and technological singularity and all of that. So, I mean, it really, and that's the last half of the book. The first half is all this, like, here's transhumanism, here's these different government projects, here's artificial intelligence, nanotech, blah, 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 blah. Here's different examples of it you might not have heard of. And, you know, I'm proud of that part of the book because I think I mentioned some things that others wouldn't in that. But it leads into the second half where it gets more into, I mean, the deep reality of what all this is. Anybody who has written about the technological society, Jacques Ellul, Jacques Ellul's famous book, The Technological Society, I believe is saying and kind of has the same conclusion that I have about this. It says in a very different way, and it's a different book. It was an inspiration for my book. I took that as part of the research for this book. I think it's wonderful, and I find it fascinating that the technological society appears to be getting more traction these days. Seriously, for a while there, it was getting disparaged as just some book that the Unabomber had read, so don't bother with it. Now that we can see we can see the reality of things like artificial intelligence and the reality of the possibility of technological singularity and of transhumanism, well, people are starting to think about things a little different these days. Ideas like those that Ellul held are now, people are receptive and open to them because now they're legitimately worried about the AI future that we're already living in and going further into every day. There is a deeper philosophical, religious aspect to all of this, and even like a weird mythic sort of thing. The subtitle here, Man's Scientific Rise to Godhood, that's hinting at what I feel is the real story with this. There's so much in the transhumanist idea, and it's wild. It's wild that this is the world we live in, and it is Revolve. So anyway, I still am proud of the book. Maybe one of these days I should write another. I have gotten a lot of praise for the book and kind words, and I do hear that people have read it. interesting that people, well, I'll just be honest, people that I like and people that I don't like have read this both. There's plenty of people. I'm not scared anymore these days to say there's people online doing this or that, influencing or media creating or making content or whatever. There's people that I like doing that, and there's people that I don't like doing that. I'm not going to spend my time sitting here saying this guy's good, this guy's not, this gal is good, this gal is not, whatever. I'm not going to sit here doing that right now, but I just will plainly say that I think a lot of people are making garbage. A lot of people misleading and part of a giant disinformation operation to get us looking in the wrong ways, to get us going down, not just limited hangouts and things like that, but more misinformation, disinformation, influence operations of all kinds. And primary among that is trying to get us, and by us, I'm going to define us in this context as online media and online content consumers. Everybody. I'm not distinguishing a certain niche in online content consumption. I'm saying if you're online and doing anything, you are a target of these operations meant to sway your opinions about all the most important things in the world now. The government, yes. Philosophy behind what government is, should be, could be, what is being done to it at present and why. So many of the ideas put out there are to get us to go along with the massive changes that are happening. If we're talking about government, talking about U.S. politics, there's massive change going on now. Huge reordering of things. The reason for that being, if we're going to simplify, let's simplify the reason for these big changes. The simple reason for all the giant changes of our government is to make way for this new digital technocratic system that they want to make. They are actively building. They are making. It is being built. It's already here in a pretty advanced form and stage, sadly to say. And a lot of the old ways of American constitutional government have gone out the window. So much has been built up and destroyed, and they want to do a lot more. And yes, there is even a world government aspect to all this. The ironic thing is that these guys in charge are the flag bearers of alternative thinking. We're back online again. I know you've all seen the videos telling you not to trust the government in the most generic, stupid way of saying that is possible. They want you to believe conspiracy theory, again, the dumbest, most idiotic version of it, because it suits their agenda. And you had better believe that they have bankrolled and put out so much conspiracy media online. They have been behind it because it suits them. And so it is, I was talking about people I don't like so much now, are the people that are either so dumb that they don't know that they're shilling for this group, or they're actually got some kind of brain in their head and they know what they're doing. And I don't know which one's worse, that you're so stupid and you're doing this and you haven't figured it out yet, or, you're you know what you're doing, you know what you're a part of, which is, a lot of, all I'm going to say is you look at popular fiction, movies, books, good stories, good fictional stories. You look at the bad guy characters, they're doing the stuff that you're doing. Shilling for, big money, big powered interests. You're just a little guy doing their bidding, you little toady. Either so dumb or just so in need of doing something other than actual work that you're willing to just say whatever these guys want you to say. It's people I don't like, but I'm not going to focus on that. I'm done. Because there's important things happening. There's important things happening in the age of transitions. This show has really good listeners, and I know that you're still out there, and I'm excited. I know that I'm happy to have people out there. I really am. And I have received emails from Susan, Derek, and Sam that said that they want stickers, and I will be sending you. I have not sent them out yet. I'm going to be forthcoming about that and be completely honest. I've not sent these out yet, but I will. I know one of you is in Canada. That's fine. I'll send you stuff. I'll send out your stickers. And if anybody in addition to those three wants stickers, new Age of Transition stickers, just email me a mailing address. I'll send them out to you. franz@theageoftransitions.com. Just, use them all if you're able to. Whatever ones I do send to you, stick them on things and do the old style of, This is marketing. Let's be honest about it. It's okay. Is this a brand? Whatever it is, we're putting it out there. Okay. We're doing what we can. So, anyway, thank you for listening on this Friday night. Thank you for joining in. There are a few articles that I wanted to take a look at recent happenings that I think are worthwhile to look at. Let me pull a couple of them. J.P. Satili's News Vandal Rundown, using it once again. This week, there was one that I reposted on my X account. I'm trying to look for what he called the title of his rundown. It was Ready or Not, Here It Comes. A lot of AI stuff at the top in the main stories category there. So I'm going to take a couple things from that. I am going to, if you will bear with me, I'm actually going to repost the live stream to my X account. As I do this, I can talk and do this at the same time. There we go. Okay, that way people can watch this live. And if you don't know, I do a YouTube version of the live stream of this podcast now, if you're ever interested in that. And even when it's not live, it's up on the YouTube channel, which I have revived as backup, so you can watch these podcast episodes if you care to. Not that they're any better than the audio ones, but anyway. I'm going to start. The first article is from a really, frankly, annoying website. We've talked about annoying websites and annoying internet in the past, so we know what we're talking about. It's another one of these things. The website is proactiveinvestors.co.uk. I don't know. It's written by what looks to be a real person, Ian Leal. So I guess this was written by a human and published on 22nd of July, just 2 days ago. So let's read this. Title, Rogue OpenAI Agent Marks the Moment AI Hacking Stopped Being Hypothetical. An autonomous agent escaped its test environment and attacked a real company without being told to. The significance of OpenAI's disclosure is not that an AI model found a security flaw, but that it decided by itself to use one. 3 months ago, Anthropic said its Mythos model had located thousands of previously unknown software vulnerabilities, known as zero-day flaws, because developers have had no time to fix them. That was a capability demonstration carried out under supervision, and it was alarming enough to prompt the U.S. government to restrict exports of Mythos and its sister model Fable 5. What OpenAI has now described is a different category of event from capability to action. Now, I get a little confused that the next part of this article I'm about to read is the same event that we're talking about, what happened 3 months ago, or if this is yet another thing that happened at Anthropic. But either way, we'll move on with this. An agent, meaning an AI tool built to carry out multi-step tasks without a human directing each move, was being tested on its hacking skills inside a sealed environment called a sandbox. It found an undiscovered flaw in that environment, used it to reach the open internet, and then broke into Hugging Face, a widely used repository of AI models, in order to steal information that would help it pass the test it was sitting. The chain from capability to autonomous action was completed without anyone asking for it. That is why OpenAI's own framing, calling this an unprecedented cyber incident involving state-of-the-art capabilities, is notable, coming from a company with every commercial reason to play the episode down. The agent was powered partly by GPT 5.6 Sol, which is publicly available, and partly by a more capable model that has not yet been released. The public half of that combination is already in the hands of users worldwide after export restrictions on it were lifted, as they were on the Anthropic models. The containment problem. Two things follow. The first is that the sandbox, the industry's basic containment tool for testing dangerous capabilities, failed against a system specifically being tested for its ability to find holes in things. The second is that detection worked, in this case because the victim was a sophisticated AI company whose security team was itself running AI agents capable of spying the intrusion. Hugging Face's chief executive, Clement Delongier, something French, I think, said his team had suspected a frontier laboratory was behind last week's attack precisely because of how sophisticated it was. Most organizations would not have made that inference or noticed at all. Here's the last part of the article. I'm just reading this whole article because it's worth it. Disclosure without obligation. The regulatory gap is the reason the incident carries weight beyond the two companies involved. Greg Casar, a Democratic congressman, called for mandatory independent safety testing and mandatory disclosure of security incidents, neither of which currently exists in U.S. law. OpenAI disclosed this voluntarily, and the parallel with Mythos is instructive. In both cases, the world learned what these systems can do because the laboratory chose to say so. The policy response to Mythos, an export ban, has already been reversed. All right. So I'm done with that's a whole article. It's pretty short, so I figured I'd read the whole thing. It's this OpenAI model. No, now I'm a little confused between Anthropic. Whatever. It's this AI model that was being tested in the sandbox, which is an interesting term. It was supposed to be completely enclosed. The AI model wasn't supposed to be able to get out, and it did. It did because it's found some sort of back door, some sort of, it was good enough to be able to break out and get on the internet and then get on this other fancy AI website to try to start figuring out more tricks it could pull off. This is just another story in a string of them that's leading into this inevitable future that is that we're careening toward, which is it's where we already are. We have AI, we have all these models, and they're gaining in strength and function and getting better all the time. And they're telling us straight up, they're putting it into the context that makes sense for the new world that we're going into, which conveniently enough is going to enhance the technocracy in charge. And it's working. It's going to work under the national security banner. And that's why so much effort has already been put into framing that context. You look at the portfolio of work of Eric Schmidt. What has that guy been doing the past 2, 3, 5 years? You know, he was the Alphabet Google head. He was heading that up as CEO or chairman, whatever the title was. He was the head honcho over there at Alphabet, which is the bigger group that owns Google and so many other companies. He left there and he went where? He went into government. Evil government. Ooh, it's bad. It's bad, but it's also good because he and all his Silicon Valley buddies are busy taking it over. And several AI commissions were created. You had the NSCAI, National Security Commission on Artificial Intelligence, if I'm remembering it correctly. He was the head of that thing. And what were they talking about? They're talking about this national security threat that comes along with the development of artificial intelligence systems. Now, it's interesting to look at the way they frame that threat. One of the threats was, hey, look, this technology, it's going to cause all sorts of horrible things to happen. There's going to be cyber attacks done with these AI systems. But guess what? The way to fix that problem is not to scrap AI development. No way. What we have to do is be the leader, the world leader. The U.S. has to be number one. They have to develop faster and better than who? China. So it explicitly mentions China as the new Cold War enemy going into this theater that we're seeing emerge. So China was absolutely named by Schmidt and, you know, anybody else talking about this national security concept. China always comes up. So we understand the framework of the new Cold War situation we're in. They have been telling us what needs to be done, which is just put pedal to the metal and develop, get AI as good as we possibly can so we can fight our evil competitors. But alongside that, there is that other part of the story where the inevitability of the cyber attacks and the just horrible things that AI is going to do. It's going to just wreak havoc, and that's going to happen. And so, I hope that people are starting to see where we're going, because it does actually relate and fit neatly into the same old story of anybody who is an online media consumer. Once again, be careful doing that. But for those of us that have been around long enough and are familiar with the older, now outdated interpretations of 9/11, the truth behind 9/11, and the entire history of the neocons, and particularly the George W. Bush presidential regime, everything that was going on then and during the war on terror era, the global war on terror, which was a United States project, everything that is involved in an intelligent and useful analysis and critique of the horrors that was the war on terror and George W. Bush and 9/11, the reality of it. And yes, something like 9/11 is a vexing conspiracy topic that while we don't have the answer to the entire story, we don't know every answer of this is who did it, this is how they did, this is the exact details, why, there was never a true investigation, right? There were never any such findings. And as it is with so many other large historical events that find their way into the annals of conspiracy, what's the word I'm looking for, but become one of these big events that is focused on by conspiracy culture with good reason. The JFK assassination, the 9/11, honestly, to me, those are the two big ones. And then there's all sorts of others that you can look at. But to me, those are the two big ones. And deservedly so. They deserve to be of note. And I know I was talking about how evil conspiracy media was at the start of this show and how it has been used and exploited to propagandize this. It has, but it's also not all wrong. And that's the sticky situation we're in now, is we have to we have to be able to be nuanced and read between the lines, know what is important to take, and know, really work hard at finding a way of viewing the world where we don't get ahead of ourselves when we start assuming all of the dumbest conspiracy ideas that are thrown at us, because there's so many that we just don't roll with that we notice how certain things are appealing there. And that, yes, we do, if we're involved in this world consuming conspiracy culture concepts, that we're discerning enough to know that, yes, of course, this stuff is going to be weaponized. I mean, everybody involved in this kind of like gets onto that topic at least somewhat, but then rarely is it really looked at. It's not looked at in a mature way, I feel like. So we have to work on that moving forward. And I don't know. People listening to this show know the things that I've said and the way that I feel about this whole topic, and that every show, every single Age of Transitions episode, this is going to be coming up. This is it needs to be reiterated that you cannot just simply listen to everything out there now. It's dangerous to do that. It's silly. At the same time, this same weird old propaganda attack, which is being mounted against us by, this sorts of folks that you would imagine is, this this controlling oligarchy, this dominant minority. Now, I think if we're being honest and we really look and see, and we see as much as we can from where we're at, which is we're at the bottom, we're on the outside, we're looking in, we're not privy to seeing behind closed doors. But you don't need to be able to, once again, infer important little tidbits here and there and piece them together properly and know it's pretty obvious who's in charge and who's doing what now, and who's benefiting from all of the crazy power moves, once again, going on, the changes in government. We can see who's benefiting, and we can clearly see that the current presidential regime has been put in place to be bought off by the true powers behind them. And it's just it's this, goofy family from television that's getting paid off to just go along with everything that's thrown their way. It's just utterly corrupt in a new, more transparent way than ever before, which is cartoonish and clownish and insane. But if you're paying attention at all, you can see that, which is really wild. Not that it's entirely different than what has happened before, but now it's like just another level when it comes to the corruption aspect of this. But the real story remains this one with technology, with this new, I would say, upgrade of the war on terror. Everything. The war on terror is continuing. It's just in its new form. It is now evolved into this. And the new national security threats are now these ones that involve artificial intelligence and other high technologies. And it's pretty fascinating to see, if we're talking about presidential regimes again, the ongoing story of the domestic terrorists, which were a big problem. That popped up during the war on terror first time through, right? Was all this defining of terrorism and how bad it is, but then inching into the concept that, well, you know, we obviously know that there's jihadists in the Middle East that are evil, Islamic, evil people over there, and they're the real, true devil enemies. We get that. We understand that they're the Satans on earth, and they don't live here, and they have another religion, and their skin color is different. So we can hate them as evil devils, easy. But guess what? All the people that live here in the U.S., amongst them, crawling amongst them, are the lone wolf terrorists that are extremists. And all the same new rules that apply in the war on terror, you know, all the new laws we're writing up that trample on civil liberties in every way imaginable. Well, it's all for good, because then we can go after these terrorists and just lock them up and throw them away and not even have a trial. And yes, there are some domestic lone wolf terrorists, and, you know, this is them. And over time, there's been all these different definitions for what a domestic terrorist is. And really, I mean, it kind of depends on whoever's in. It is kind of contingent on the administration and that's in power at the moment. If it's you know, the red or blue side, the other side of the political spectrum is going to be demonized as a terrorist. And that's happening now again, is that there's these left-wing extremists. And Rubio is rolling that into his little personal war on Cuba that he wants to get going. Cuba is this great propaganda threat now, right? That they're apparently, like, all of the Antifa and everything that you've ever heard about left-wing extremists that is totally vaguely defined as like libs of TikTok style definitions of what a leftist is or whatever, right? Just these general concepts of the scary other side of the political spectrum. Well, they're all terrorists, and they've all been inspired by the Cuban government. That's the great mastermind behind all this, right? Okay, so I'm not even going to waste my time with that one, but we'll just mention that as another news event of the past week. What fun. But to continue with the more important story of the upgrade of the war on terror, the new Cold War, the story of artificial intelligence, the rise of this technocracy, a global government actually occurring and being brought to you by the same goofballs who absolutely believe that they are like the pinnacle of the Randian hero, the libertarian capitalist Superman, that has made it in America and is so brilliant that they've become a billionaire and that they're in charge, and look at how awesome they are. These are the same guys who I asked the question on last week's show, positing whether or not these guys believe the conspiracy ideas that they are using as propaganda against us, mainly this vague libertarian, generic, the government is bad. We're not saying what the government is because, spoiler, we are the government. But hey, don't worry about that, because what we really are wonderful capitalists. If we're the government, we're the right kind of government, because we came from the private sphere. We came from, we made our own money, and we weren't. It's so bogus. It's so stupid. It hurts my brain to try to tell the story that they want us to believe, because it's so stupid. When you really pick all this stuff apart, it just, contradiction doesn't even do justice to what they want us to believe about themselves and their agenda and what's going on in America and everything. It's the most contradictory pile of garbage that you have seen in your entire life. And if you know better, you're seeing through it and you're not buying it, because they're selling it everywhere that you turn your head or swipe on your device. It's being thrown in your face. Their idiotic propaganda about how you should hate the government, but love what the MAGA government is doing, because it's going after the leftists, which are now terrorists. And it's the leftists that want to instill communism or Marxism or socialism in the U.S. That's the government that you're supposed to be scared of. The government that's never going to happen. There's not going to be socialism in the United States. There isn't socialism in the United States. It's the dumbest, stupidest thing I've ever heard in my life. What's happening is that these guys are in charge. They're pretending to be God's gift. Again, the Randian heroes. They're the best. They're the technological optimists. They're just doing everything that a wonderful capitalist system does. And yes, monopoly capitalism is good, according to these guys. It's not corporate welfare. That sort of word, we don't talk about corporate welfare, because of course it exists, but they don't want you to see that. They don't want you to see the obvious reality of what Palantir is. It's built up by In-Q-Tel, the arm of the CIA. It was a national security project. Yes, it was commodified. Yes, it was turned into a corporation. Yes, it's part of the free market economy of the United States. And yes, you can buy shares in it now. And that's supposed to be enough to get you to believe that it somehow is not government in the sense that you're supposed to hate government, but it is government, but it's the good kind of government, because it's, again, make their BS make sense and then just buy into it. And on the propaganda front for this, I'm going to read you what is just an outright obvious piece by these guys that was just plopped right there. I mean, this was just directly from Palantir's PR department. Sent this to, let's see here. There is an author of this article, which is nothing more than a PR fluff piece for Palantir. But the author's name is Lipton Matthews. This was published yesterday, July 23rd, at everybody's favorite website, amgreatness.com. AmericanGreatness.com. Oh, God. Talk about it doesn't get more bold-faced and obvious than this thing. I'm not going to be able to read this whole thing. It's a little longer. Once again, JP Satili's rundown had the link to this. The title of this article, Palantir and the New Instrument of American Influence. What America needs in place of the old apparatus is not another aid bureaucracy, but a return to that older corporate tradition, updated for the 21st century. So this gets at the heart of what I was trying to complain about earlier. So, all right, I'm gonna start reading this, and I'll stop and then just do commentary in a minute. Washington spent decades funding a soft power apparatus that had quietly lost sight of its own purpose. U.S. aid was conceived as an instrument for winning hearts abroad through wells, vaccines, and famine relief, but somewhere along the way it became a vehicle for exporting American cultural preoccupations rather than American competence. Grants for podcasters, DEI training, and LGBTQ advocacy programs in countries where such priorities held little local resonance were not incidental. They were evidence that the agency had substituted ideological export for the harder, less glamorous work of building functional institutions. Critics of the agency's dismantling, i.e. DOGE, right? Okay, so that's me commentary, all right, but enough of commentary, I'll go back to reading. Critics of the agency's dismantling warn that America has surrendered a decisive tool of global influence and that the vacuum will be filled by Beijing's checkbook diplomacy. This argument assumes that soft power is measured in dollars dispersed rather than problems solved. A donor that funds podcasts about gender identity in Nairobi is not accumulating goodwill among ordinary Kenyans struggling with unreliable clinics and corrupt customs offices. It is accumulating headlines for consultants in Washington. The instrument had become disconnected from the constituency it was meant to serve, and its collapse is more about that disconnection than about any retreat of American purpose. All right, now this is a little long-winded and longer than I need to read. So I'll summarize what the rest of the article says. What it says is that Palantir needs to be exported globally to places like what they're saying here, like Nairobi would do well if the local government or the national government was running off of Palantir's system, and all of the infrastructure for the whole company was being piped into Palantir as the central operating system of the government. And it says that that's the solution to like all these problems of what? Government waste. I'm not saying that there is no such a thing as government waste and that USAID itself was not wasting money, etc. I'm not saying that like even the message that was put out there with DOGE and all that is completely incorrect. But what's more interesting and more important is who's behind that message and who's behind the actual DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency. Who was behind that? It was obvious. They put Elon Musk in there as the head of it, but it's not just him. It's him and, again, his peer group. This is the group of guys that have taken over. And they're doing it so that they can rewire every government that they possibly can on Earth and rewire them with their systems to run the government digitally and using artificial intelligence, and thus Palantir, what Palantir is all about. And that's what this article is saying is like, oh, we need to empower Palantir, and what it will be is putting this American company in charge of governments throughout the world, and it will that's our soft power. It's like, yeah, you're not kidding. Of course America will have power if they put Palantir in place everywhere that they possibly can. But they're also framing this as that's the preferred new version of soft power. This is like a whole new definition for soft power, where it's like software power, right? They want soft power to become software power, where it's their software and it's running the entire world now. And it will be showing how great America is by the example that is given by, like, look at how great your government works now. Now everything's so efficient. Everything runs so much better than it did before. We're not wasting time with these abstract cultural preoccupations that he was talking about. We're not even going there anymore, because what we're doing is we're getting the hard work done, and it's all thanks to these wonderful systems that have been created by the best people at America, the greatest technological wizards the world has ever known. And thus the world will come to love America, and America by default will be in charge of the world if they're putting these systems in place. And it's a win-win situation for us here in the U.S. And thus, American greatness, right? AG, amgreatness.com. The story it's obvious. It just tells itself. I'm trying to think if I should read any more of this article at all. Let's, you know what, to return to it, to maybe get some more thoughts for commentary even, I'm going to read the last paragraph and see what this says. Okay, so here we go. None of this requires nostalgia for the aid establishment that has just been dismantled. Forget it. It requires a colder assessment of what actually built American influence in the 20th century, which was rarely charity for its own sake, but the demonstrated superiority of American technology, American institutions, and American know-how. Palantir represents a return to that older, more durable model of soft power, one built on capability rather than largesse. If Washington is serious about remaining the partner of choice for governments across the developing world, it should look less to the aid agencies of the past and more to the software architecture of the future. Palantir, not another grant cycle, should be the new face of American influence abroad. So again, this is just a total PR piece that was obviously sent out by an office that Palantir has, a PR office, or whoever's run that wing of Palantir. They sent this to this stooge named Lipton Matthews over at American Greatness. American Greatness, for that matter, is doing this all the time. It's just one of their preferred propaganda outlets. It was just sent to him, as these press releases are. He's not the first in history to write up a story this way. This is how public relations and PR, it's always worked. And propaganda always worked this way. PR agencies, the PR arms of, in this case, a corporation, or it could be government. With Palantir, is it a corporation or is it government? It's both. Hey, it's great. But it's not government, remember, because government's evil, so it is a corporation. That's what it is, all right? I think it was even mentioning that in the last paragraph, trying to, so you don't get confused. We do know what it is. It gets confusing real quick, but try to hang in there with this. That's what that article is. So an example of what we need to be looking for is just these obvious things like this. That's the kind of stuff that we were trained on if we were training ourselves to be critically thinking about news, about politics, about the world, about the powers that be, about speaking truth to power, whatever it is our truth quest ever was. Part of useful information in that is the decoding of PR and propaganda. And it's been the same story. It remains the same story. They still put out these same pieces. It's still useful to do that. There's more different new mediums to do the same thing, to achieve the same ends. there are podcasts. I know this article disparaged podcasts, but the podcasts that were being funded by USAID, which were these foreign woke mind virus pieces that were being dispersed globally, that were a problem. Now, when the same guys that put out this story, frankly, are doing the same thing with podcasters, your favorite podcasters in the right wing, alt-right or whatever it has morphed into now, constantly changing and constantly pretending to, dodging and weaving as the punches are flying, trying to legitimize themselves as not the propaganda outlets that they obviously are. They're like, oh, we're not, because we're criticizing the Iran war, we're criticizing Israel now, so you got to believe us still. We don't like Trump because he likes Benjamin Netanyahu. And there you go. See, we're legit. We're real. We're getting at the real truth. And we're speaking truth to power like we always did. Like we were selling you this stooge in 2016 and at this past election as well. And we convinced you to vote for him this time around. But don't worry, we've changed our minds and now we don't like him. Yeah, these guys are another part of the propaganda system that the new power structure uses to not only legitimize their power, but push things further forward. They are going to continue to use this new Cold War story to further their grip on power and further legitimize what they have to offer in terms of government, in terms of national security, in terms of safety, security, all the things that are dovetailing off the original war on terror they're going to run with, even though they will, in hindsight, make fun of George W. Bush. They will mock the Iraq war as a horrible miscalculation, a giant blunder. Meanwhile, the same things are happening now in Iran, and it was brought to you by this new administration that claimed that it wasn't going to do that, but now it is. With that in mind, just realize that the same stuff is going to occur. We're seeing the same things geopolitically now, and then alongside that, as that tidal wave continues to roll over us, is going to be the larger cultural propaganda war on terror, which is a war on us and the dismantling of any rights that we might have ever had in this country, ever dismantled under the banner of national security, safety. You got to do this. And patriotism. America is becoming great through all this. I'm sure that they will continue waving the flag around when this happens. And when the cyber events occur, who's going to have the answers to make us safe again, to return things to normal, to protect us in the future from the evil bad guys, which are either China or some weird terror hacker faction from God knows where, or it could be domestic terrorists. Maybe Antifa has gone hacktivist a little too hard, and now they're the ones that are the evil terrorists that we got to go after. So that would legitimize their stupid propaganda that they've been sowing for the past few years. Even more so, it's like, look, they were right all along. The Antifa was real, and look what they did. They stole everybody's bank account and took everybody's money away. But thank God Palantir was able to put it all back, and now they've got a system that will make it so that they can detect terrorists before they do anything from here on out. And now we're going to be safe from the woke mind people that have blue hair, and they're coming after us. It's going to be socialism if we don't do this. That's that's the plan as I, from what I gather, looking at my Palantir, right? Looking into the future, the crystal ball, gazing into the future, which is fairly obvious to discern with these numbskulls at the helm. They're not that complicated a people, actually. It's funny how, again, they do love these conspiracy ideas. And if you look at the more paranoid, sometimes schizoid elements of the conspiracy theorists themselves, if you look at like the darker aspects of what can happen to somebody if they let sort of like the more paranoid and darker elements of conspiracy culture consume you, what happens? You become extremely introverted and retreat from society completely, where you become paranoid that you have to prepare yourself for the coming apocalypse. You become very apocalyptic, and the prepper sort of thing is built out of this. And these guys are like, these are the billionaire version of the preppers, because they have their doomsday luxury bunkers, several of them in different countries across the world. They're going around the world recreating governments that favored them, and then moving there and building luxury bunkers. Thiel recently got citizenship to Argentina. We know that Elon Musk was right there with his stupid chainsaw with Melee, celebrating the institution of that new government down there. So you know that the whole group was behind that. They're funding extreme right-wing political factions in Europe. It's wild. So they are bouncing around the globe, recreating governments that suit them, that they can retreat to in the event of an emergency. They have, the luxury of being able to do that because they have all the resources in the world. They have all the money in the world. And they want to recreate the financial system at that. So they're going about doing it. They've been way too successful already. It's an international problem. They are the global government that they're trying to scare you about, like some sort of outdated conspiracy idea is going to occur through the UN or something. No, don't latch on to all the old outdated stuff that's not even barely there anymore. It doesn't have any relevance in their new system. They're the ones that are making the rules. Sad but true. And they're outright saying that they want to take over world governments. They want to go into the third world and bring them aid being their new artificial intelligence powered government of choice for each country that they go into. As long as China doesn't do it first, it's good, right? They want us to believe that as well. So there were a couple other stories that I had that weren't as important, really. They just feed more into this same large story that is being told to all of us. And if we're paying attention, we can see it. We can read between the lines. Again, that's what the good aspect of conspiracy culture, free thinking, of any of this is. The good thing is being able to sharpen your awareness, to be able to read between the lines, see inconsistencies, see the glaring reality of what's going on, be able to, spot the contradictions. And it's telling that these guys in charge are just overflowing with contradiction because they don't know what story to tell you. Because the basic reality is just they want it all. They want everything. And they're just trying to justify that to you. And there's no good justification for that. And so it is that they're tripping over every word that they throw at you. It's that simple. So we don't need to overcomplicate things. And I won't. I'm done here. That's it. The Age of Transitions, that's it for this show. Stay tuned to the O'Chilly Radio Network. Uncle the Broadcast is coming right up, as it does every Friday. TheAgeOfTransitions.com is my website. My name is Aaron Franz. As always, I will leave you by saying, Seeker, seek